everyone, and welcome back to our Domestic Supply Chain Summit. I'm excited because we've got someone here who's really going to dive into not just the brokerage space, but the technology that's growing behind it and where we see that going into the next year as well. And with us, why not have a better guest than this? From Tai Software, we got their CEO, Mitch Mitchell. Mitch, thanks so much for joining me here today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Really excited to talk with you today.
Yeah, this is going to be a good time. And I'd love for you to maybe just give our audience a brief background of yourself and the work you do at Tai.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. I'm CEO of Tai Software, and Tai Software builds TMS for freight brokers. So we really focus on North America freight. We really focus on LTL and full truckload. And then the TMS is really about operational excellence. It's about helping people do their job better and be really good at operational excellence. And so my background is in technology. I'm a computer science major and have been building TMSs for brokers for a lot more years than I'm proud to count. It's over 20 now. So I went from being like a new guy in this place to building TMS for a pretty long time. And over those years, I've learned a lot of really cool lessons and have seen a lot of really neat things from our customers, and hopefully has helped us build and guide our customers and be good partners to them on the technology side.
Well, in that case, the question I want to start off with is because you're clearly in these conversations with brokers throughout this past year. What were significant trends that you found in those discussions? What were brokers dealing with throughout this past 2024? Whether it's market conditions or just, it's technology trends that between you and them are working on kind of overcoming.
Yeah, 24 was a tough year, I think, for everyone. I don't know that anyone has been coming through 24 excited, like best year ever. However, we did see some of our brokers that use our platform grow pretty significantly in 24. And some of that's redistribution of market from changes and transitions that have happened. But others have struggled a little bit more. And we definitely know there's been a lot of margin pressure regardless of where they're at. But what we found is focusing on running a good business helps regardless of where we are in that cycle. And I think these last couple of years have been a reminder that the freight market's cyclical, right? It goes up and down. And just like we're in a tougher downswing right now, we'll come back. And when we come back, we got to be prepared for that. And that's what we've been seeing on the technology side is a focus on the operators, is a focus on the brokers who are moving freight every day and making sure that our technology and the technology partners that we're working with are all integrated really nicely together so that they are giving contextual information. Like, fraud has been a little bit of a topic this year, right? I think that's one that you can be really safe of talking about. But it's not just about fraud and fraud prevention. It's how are you helping your team prevent the fraud in context to their workflows and their days. So those kinds of trends we've been seeing, and they're really exciting to see because it's going to help everybody, right? It makes us all a lot stronger and better.
Yeah, I love that you brought up that fraud piece too, because it's, the discussion on that in particular is almost highlighting the crimes where it's like, I agree with you. I'd love to see that discussion, especially this next year, turn into, well, how are we just, creating those boundaries, like you said, in the workflow of these individuals. So we just know that when a load is booked, we don't have to worry about so much of this aftermath, like watching or surveillance, right? That we've taken the correct steps beforehand to get that done. So I definitely think that's something that, was big in 24, and I think will continue to grow and 25 as well. On the technology adoption aspect, especially the good old TMS, which you brought up yourself, you've got all that experience in, right? How has that evolved over this last year? And just even if people are just reaching out to you, looking for a new system, how has those conversations changed throughout 24?
Yeah, I think there's an even bigger pathway there. And especially on the brokerage side, but even on the asset-based side, where our initial path into technology is really rudimentary, right? We get to this point where we just need a TMS because we need a system of record. And that's the first step of any technology evolution. We saw it with CRMs, we see it with TMSs, and we see it in many other aspects of technology. But there's a second generation, and that's where we're at in the TMS space and in logistics. And that second generation is about doing the jobs really well. And it's about transitioning from having just a system of record to having a system that provides operational excellence, having a system that makes your team better at the jobs they're doing. Now, that's a little bit of a challenge because sometimes the way that we put processes in place that we think are efficient or processes in place for operating our business, they get a little bit stagnant. And over time, they become more burdensome than they should. And there's generally a better way to do it. So if we take the time and look and say, okay, well, these processes can be more efficient, then we have to also look at our technology. Can our technology support this more efficient process? Can the technology support the broker who's doing the work every day better than just a system that's a glorified spreadsheet? And so what we see with that has been a real trend in looking at those processes and being efficient about the job we're doing. And in a down market, it makes sense because we want to do the best we can with the people we have.
I love that. And I want to take that question and I will spin it into 25, especially because we've talked about possibly market swings. And I always, whenever I hear of a market swing, whether it's good or bad, right? This one is potentially much better than we've seen in the past couple of years. Anytime I hear those swings, so I think about the brokers in particular and this like, this piece, or not even the financial piece of it, but just this spot that they get themselves in where in this situation, right, shippers are going to still be kind of holding on rates as best that they can. If anything, probably not negotiating quite yet their payment terms. Then you got carriers on the other end who are doing the complete opposite, hearing that the market's getting better, asking for better rates, at the same time competing on how quickly, right, you're going to pay me.
Yeah.
I'm interested in how your team is preparing for that and the technology that even supports a lot of those actions and functions. How do you see this market change going into 25? Maybe changing the conversation of the technology that they need or need to improve within their workflow?
Yeah, I think that comes under two different categories. One of them is that pressure between brokers and shippers and from a business perspective. And then also, how does the technology help us? And on the first one, brokers always have to remind themselves, they have to remind their shippers, and they have to remind their carriers of their value and their expertise in that area. And to me, when I look at it, it's very much a similar parallel to salespeople versus ops people, right? And there's always that pressure between them where, well, salespeople play golf all day. They're out taking people to dinner, having a great time. And some of that has some reality to it, but it's still work and they're still building those relationships. They're adding value to the process. And if you don't recognize that value, you have to go be a salesperson for a little while and recognize and be like, okay, that job's really hard. That job is tremendously important. And that's what brokers need to continually do as well, and help let carriers be great at their operational side of the business, help shippers be great at running their facilities, and be in the middle and facilitate those conversations and add value to both sides. So continually reminding both sides that there is value here, and that relationship management and that oversight is really helpful. And when they do that, they're tremendously successful.
I was just going to comment on it's like it's really focusing on excellence, customer service excellence, right? On both ends and
Exactly.
making both those parties happy and getting through those times. Yeah, I love that. The other thing I want to discuss is the partnerships that we've seen, right, in tech in this last year. I mean, it's really interesting for me to report on because we see so many, I think, technologies understanding that they are maybe more of like an added function, and if not a full tech, and just seeing companies integrate with companies like yourself in order to bring these products and make it easier for consumers to get their hands on. Can you tell me a little bit about that trend and maybe the work that you're doing at Tai to make these integrations achievable for customers?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite topics. I love
Yeah,
talking about this. So thanks. The
yeah,
Well, we see it ties into that next generation of TMS that I'm talking about, in that with that, we also have to recognize that we don't stand alone. And the fraud prevention, for example, there's companies out there that are really, really good at fraud tools and fraud functionality. Now, we're pretty good at a TMS, self-proclaimed, but we doesn't mean we need to also be experts in fraud. We do need to be experts in certain areas, but there's tools out there that provide really great value. And as a TMS provider, we kind of become that framework for the freight management and the freight execution process, bringing in tools like fraud prevention, bringing in the load boards, bringing in the analytics from tools like Sonar as well. All these combined, if we can bring these tools into context of the workflow for the user, it adds a tremendous value to the tools. And it gives a tremendous value to the operations person, right? If you have all that pricing knowledge, you have all that fraud prevention knowledge, if you have the AI tools all in context of the way you're working, it gives you an opportunity to perform at a much, much higher level. So for the tools that aren't integrating together and they're not bringing these tools into one place, it's adding friction to the day, and friction offers reluctance, right? So fraud's an easy one to use, but if we switch over and say something like, talk about Sonar and pricing, then what we end up with is the same kind of thing. If Sonar is over here on the outside and my TMS, I'm moving along, why am I going to go switch context and go look over in a different system? I need that data right then when I'm trying to figure out when I want to price my load and what I want to do with it, and while I'm talking to carriers. So those integrations are something we work a lot on. And I think as an industry, it's our responsibility to really push forward on those integrations and make sure that we're all working together really nicely.
Yeah, and again, a trend I think we'll see more of in 25 as
Absolutely.
well. Being a tech guy, I'm also like a nice tech nerd over here as well. If you had to look into 25, what type of technology gets you the most excited? What do you see that's coming up on the horizon that you see more adoption from freight brokers into the next year?
Yep. The thing that we've been seeing a lot of trending towards and is really exciting to us is this idea of buy plus build for large scale applications, or for best in show, I guess, is, where we get an opportunity we buy a product and then connect to other things. And it ties into this connectivity that you're talking about, where I can buy a TMS, I can buy a great freight management product, and they work together. And then I can also build maybe my own custom tools on top of it. So that trend of buy plus build, I think, is so much nicer to see our industry moving towards, rather than the other way around, where we have companies building their own TMSs and homegrown solutions. That trend, I think, is really positive and one that shows maturity in our space. I often like to talk about it in the terms of core versus context. Even for us as a software company, our core business is creating software, and that we do. But we don't build a CRM that we use. We buy that. So we buy the software that provides context. We build what's core. And so seeing that trend in the industry is really nice, and I hope that continues. And then this wouldn't be a proper conversation about the future if I didn't say AI. So I'm going to go and drop in AI, but on the
I
AI
love that.
side, I like to laugh about that too. If you really can't,
Me
right?
too. Me
Yeah,
too. Hey,
you have to. You have to.
yeah, you should
But
search my inbox right now. It's just all
yeah,
AI at this
all
point.
AI everywhere. But there's some reality to it, and what I think we're going to see with AI in 25, because obviously it's taking over the world and it's not going anywhere, right? There's other technologies that have come and gone over time, but AI is here to stay. And it's not just here to stay, but it's been here for a long time, just not as prevalent. So what really happened is we've had AI maturing for the last 10 years. And then about 3 years ago, it exploded. And now it continues to mature in a much larger fashion. And what we're going to see in 25, I believe, is we're going to see that AI leaning towards real productivity, where we're going to expect an ROI from our AI. So now I got all the acronyms in there.
All the eyes. Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. Mitch, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your expertise today. It's been so helpful. And of course, if people want to learn more about Tai, where should they go?
Come visit us at taisoftware.com. You can also reach us on LinkedIn. So we try to be very available. So either on our website or LinkedIn, and email too.
Love it. For our audience, thank you so much for checking out the Domestic Supply Chain Summit. Stay tuned for more content as well.